Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this recording of UMGC EdTech faculty's favorite tools. I'm Brandy Chateau. I am the program director for educational technology here at UMGC. I oversee 4 programs. The Master of Education in Instructional Technology, which is focused on integrating technology into K-12 classrooms. The Master of Distance Education and E-Learning, which is focused on leading and managing online learning programs. The Master of Science in Learning Design, which is focused on instructional design and creating online courses. And then we have a companion program to our Learning Design and Tech program in edX, which is the Instructional Design and Technology MicroMasters program. I'm joined today by my colleague, Erica Ellsworth. Erica, tell everybody a little bit about you.
Hi everyone, my name is Erica Ellsworth. I am what's called a collegiate faculty member at University of Maryland Global Campus. Technically, that means I'm one of 2 full-time faculty members in our program. Primarily, I teach in our Master of Distance Education program and help manage our edX program. I have background in faculty training and onboarding, as well as adult basic education and educational technology. Super excited to be here with you all today.
Awesome. So Eric and I are partners in crime, and we love educational technology. We love to talk about it, and we want to share some tools with you today. And Eric, I think you're going to get us started, yeah?
Yeah, let's talk about everyone's favorite, it seems, Canva. We're starting to see Canva used a lot in our programs. Our capstone students in our programs tend to use Canva for a variety of projects. And that's because Canva can do it all. There's a free version that comes with a lot of templates and designs. They're easy to change up, to rebrand, to share, to save. So for me, Canva, if you're looking for something on the fly, infographics, announcements, we've been encouraging students in our programs to use the interactive resumes on Canva just to showcase their skills in a different way. This is an example of an expectation document I share with our capstone students when I teach our capstone class. You know, it would be really easy just to do a text-based announcement. This is what I expect of you. This is what you can expect of me. Instead, I went on to a classroom template in Canva and created an expectations graphic that I can then post to the classroom. I can open it like this in Zoom and record a quick video with it. So lots of easy ways to manipulate this graphic. I did download it as a PNG file, which we use Desire to Learn at UMGC. It was easy to upload this into an announcement space. So when we look at 4 C's in alignment, I noted creativity and collaboration. Collaboration, it might look like, what do you mean collaboration? Because Canva has a new Teams space, it makes collaboration really easy. So you're actually not even taking up email space to email something like an infographic back and forth. You can actually collaborate right on Canva, even in the free version, to design a document. ISTE standards, leader, collaborator, facilitator. I chose facilitator because you can facilitate learning out of those Canva objects. So Brandy, you want to tell us a little bit about Remind?
Yeah, absolutely. So Remind is a really cool application that I actually learned about from one of our adjunct faculty at UMGC. So it's a communication platform. It allows you to send messages out to students and parents, but you don't have to use like your personal phone number or you know, like your email address, but you can still send, you know, text messages and reminders, and it makes class communication really easy. So if we flip to the next slide, um, basically you can do real-time messaging. You can schedule reminders ahead of time. You can download the Remind app on your phone and send it from there. You can do it from your computer. You know, you could do it from a tablet. And for the students and the parents, it kind of shows up as text messages, and they can respond to you, but you're not, again, you're not sharing out your personal phone number or giving that information away. It's this secure platform where you can exchange these messages. And, you know, because we know that people are so connected to their mobile devices, I really like this tool because, you know, you can schedule those reminders, you can send them out, you know, and you're not relying on your students or your parents or your community to kind of have to log in and check, you know, for example, an announcement space. You know, it goes directly to where they are. So I think that's what I really like about it. If we flip to the next slide. Um, again, when we talk about 4Cs alignment and ISTE standards, obviously this one for the 4Cs falls under communications. Like I said, it's a really great communication platform that makes real-time communication kind of seamless and easy. And you can have group conversations, you can have individual conversations, all on that platform. In terms of the ISTE standards, I look at this obviously as collaborator because I think it allows you to build relationships with your students and their families. So I think it's a great collaboration tool. I do also think it facilitates learning because I think you're able to reach students when they're outside of your classroom, and you're able to answer those questions that they may have about things. You're able to kind of send those, you know, key pieces of information and those reminders. And I think that all contributes to their learning. So I think this is a really great tool. If you haven't checked it out yet, head over to the Remind website. It really is pretty smooth.
And I think like Canva, Brandy, this isn't an app that's only K through 12. I'm actually using Remind in one of my doctoral classes right now. The instructor sends us Remind messages for due dates. So it works outside of K through 12 just as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great tool.
So we have Adobe Spark. It's similar to Canva. It is part of the Adobe family. It's free, but it's limited. And I think like all Adobe products, you get a little bit of taste of the application, but to enjoy the kind of the full on power of it, you have to get the paid version. It is not part of the Adobe, what is it,
Creative Cloud.
Yeah, the Creative Cloud. It's not part of the Creative Cloud. It's actually an add-on. It is, so like I said, it's a design application. This is a demo I did in Adobe Spark. Could have I done it in Canva? I could have. Could have I done it in PowerPoint? I could have. I think the difference is just, you know, it has some more modern designs, some funkier designs. So if you're middle school, high school, you might find some designs on Adobe Spark that you wouldn't find on Canva. Similar to Canva, you can download the PNG, you can download a PDF. Pretty easy once you have your template up to start adding into the template. It's a little bit more difficult to change the template, a lot like using Adobe Photoshop, right? If you're just doing the basics, it's pretty easy. If you start getting into wanting to change shapes and color and things like that. It takes a little bit more, more design. Creativity, collaboration, again, it has a collaborative space, leader, collaborator, facilitator. And here I chose leader and facilitator because I think anytime we use a design tool like Canva, Adobe Spark, Microsoft Sway, where we can lead learners to, or we can facilitate that learning. So to me, any of those design elements can really trigger how we're leading or facilitating learning, just as much as how we're collaborating in that process.
I think too, Erica, if you just pop back for a second, one of the things that you and I have talked about is, kind of the benefits and limitations when we compare Adobe Spark to something like Canva. There are benefits in having, kind of limited templates, right? Like if you have a student who's really overwhelmed by a lot of choices, Canva is probably not the best tool, right? Because there's so much to it that you can really quickly get lost and end up spending all of your time just looking through templates instead of actually producing a product. So if you have students like that, Adobe Spark might be a better option, right? Because there's not as much to get lost in. And so I think for those students, Adobe Spark is a really good tool.
It's very much, I don't want to call it WYSIWYG because it's not quite what it is, but it's very much, here's the text box, fill in the text box. Whereas in Canva, do you want to move the text box? Do you want to put the text box over here? Do you want to change? So you're right. If you have a student who's struggling with choices a little bit, Spark might be the best bet. Likewise, I think younger students, even though there's a learning curve with Adobe products, I think if you were to open a template for, say, a second grade class, they would be able to start filling in that template and not being overwhelmed with what's the color palette, what's this do, what's that do. It's just they're filling in that template.
Yeah, great point. Okay, so our next tool is Screencast-O-Matic. This is an oldie but goodie. I've been using Screencast-O-Matic for several years now, and I really, really like it. So basically, Screencast-O-Matic is a screen recorder, which means that if you want to make a video of what's on your computer screen, you can use Screencast-O-Matic and you can record what's on your screen and narrate at the same time. And you can see here from I took a screenshot of their webpage. You can just record your screen. You can record your screen and your webcam, or you could just do your webcam if you just want to make a video of yourself speaking. So it gives you, some different functionality there. You can see the max time is 15 minutes. So, and I think when we're thinking about making videos for students, we don't want to go much past that anyway, because we know attention spans are short. But it's really easy, and you drag those dotted lines to the space you want to record on your screen, and then you hit record, and it counts down for you to let you know when it's going to start recording. And then when you're done, you hit stop, and it'll ask you if you want to keep it or you want to start over. And it makes really great screencasts. Okay, now next slide. So I stole this from Screencast-O-Matic's website. Please don't tell them. Actually, no, I don't think they would mind. But essentially, these are some ideas for how you can use Screencast-O-Matic. So if you're doing any kind of flipped or blended learning, or even full online virtual learning, it's a great tool to make those instructional videos and to create lessons for your classroom or to record instructions. It can drive student conversations. Erica actually has been really involved in a pilot in some of our courses using video with students and getting them to create videos. And so sometimes, you can have, video conversations back and forth. instead of those, traditional, more written responses. So kind of an alternative to discussion boards. Mentorship and feedback. I think video is great for feedback, especially if you're giving feedback of written assignments, because you can actually pull, or really any assignment, you can pull it up on the screen and you can really go through it and point things out and give positive feedback, and if you need to give critical feedback. But I think, being able to see it on the screen and hear what you're talking about, and the tone in your voice sometimes communicates better than just written feedback alone. It's great for student assignments. If you want students to make a video, I believe Screencast-O-Matic, it may be a paid feature, but you can actually link student accounts to it. And have students create videos. The other alternative is they can just create them and save them as a file, or upload them to YouTube or something like that. You could make instructional kind of lecture videos. If you're part of a professional development team that does professional development for other educators, and you're doing it online, kind of like we're doing today, it's a great tool for that as well. And like I said, there is paid versions that allow you to record for longer periods of time and maybe have some other features, but we just use the free version and it works really well. Okay, so let's talk about 4Cs and ISTE standards. 4Cs. So I picked communication and creativity. I think because videos communicate ideas and tell stories, it's a great tool for communication. I also think video allows you to be creative and approach demonstration of knowledge in a different way. I think it's a different way for students to show you what they know. In terms of ISTE standards, I picked, Citizen because, I think when we talk about creating video and putting videos online, we need to talk a little bit about media and making sure that what we're putting out there is responsible and respectful. So I think it hits some of those digital citizenship standards. I think you can collaborate with video, either collaborating to create it or, through the back and forth, if you're doing kind of video discussions and things like that, can be used as a design tool. So certainly you can use it to create pieces of your lesson. And I also picked facilitator, right? Because you can certainly facilitate learning through video.
Yeah, Brandy, kind of a cool, there are two features on Screencast-O-Matic that I find really cool. And one of them is that ability to record voice and screen without having your face. So if your students are recording something but you don't want their faces out there, Screencast-O-Matic's a great tool to be able to do that, because you can have the power of a video without having the face. You could put an avatar out if you wanted to.
That's a great point.
But the other thing I like about Screencast-O-Matic is the little starburst, where you can use your mouse to burst specific things that you're pointing to. So if you're doing, you gave the example of feedback on a paper, being able to burst a sentence for students to have their eyes drawn right to that, I think is an important tool that Screencast-O-Matic does for free on the free version.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I'm glad you reminded me of that. I didn't mention that there are lots of different options where you can actually have it record your mouse movements, which is really great if you're trying to teach like a piece of software, or you can choose not to have that. And like Erica said, there are different tools that allow you to highlight specific parts of your screen, which just helps again with that feedback. So thank you for reminding me about that.
How about Edpuzzle? I have to admit, when you included this one, I was like, I'm not sure, but I'm intrigued by it.
Oh, Ed Puzzle. Yeah, so love Ed Puzzle. And I think the reason why I included this right after Screencast-O-Matic is because it also deals with video. So Ed Puzzle, basically what Ed Puzzle allows you to do is you can take a video from YouTube, which means you could either find a video or you could record a video with Screencast-O-Matic and put it on YouTube. And then you pull that video into Edpuzzle and you can actually like add assessment questions and other kind of interactive pieces, and you can track students' progress. Like you can see how far they've watched the video, you know, where they might have gotten stuck, what their answers to the questions you embedded were. And it's pretty easy to use, and I think it's a pretty powerful tool. So let's see, what do we have on the next slide? Yes. I think I stole this from Edpuzzle's website. So lots of different ways to use it, right? Like in class, if you do like centers or rotations, Edpuzzle is great because, you know, you can have students watch a video, but you can also add that accountability piece by embedding in those assessment questions. So you can make sure that, you know, they're really listening to the video and paying attention. Also good for individual work or like listening comprehension. You could even do something like, you know, read a story or a chapter of a novel in Screencast-O-Matic, and then you can embed, you know, questions in there to help students with their listening comprehension. You could have students, or in terms of homework, you know, you can kind of the flipped classroom model. If you have students watch the video at home and answer those questions, then you can have a more robust discussion when they come in the next day. They give some suggestions like demonstrating math problems or introducing grammar and vocab. So other ways to use it. You can also use it for review. So if you have a big assessment coming up and you want to review some key concepts, you could put together a video and then embed those questions in there for students to answer. So I think it kind of levels up your use of video by also adding in those pieces. Yeah. So why Edpuzzle is your new best friend. You know, students can watch the video at their own pace, but you're adding in that accountability piece. So hopefully you got 100% student participation. All right, what do we have for 4C's alignment and ISTE standards? So videos, again, I think are good for communication. You know, it's a great way to communicate information and ideas to an audience, whether it's other educators or students. I always think video is creative, and I think Edpuzzle just adds another layer of creativity where you can kind of get creative with the types of questions you ask and, you know, where you put them and those kind of things. Depending on what questions you ask, I don't have this highlighted, but certainly you could add in some critical thinking questions. And for the ISTE standards, I chose designer and facilitator because I think this tool is all about enhancing learning for students. And, you know, I think those are the two standards that hit that best.
Yeah, I was thinking for a teacher who's using a video and then maybe Kahoot, this combines those together, doesn't it? So you're not having to have students log into two different places to do the same thing. You have one application that allows you to be really multimodal.
Yeah, it kind of, I always think of, you know, how we call like video on demand. You know, I feel like this is, I don't want to say assessment on demand, but it's sort of like, what do I want to call it? It's like maybe formative assessment on demand.
Definitely pulse checking, right? Because if it's
Yes, thank you. I couldn't think of a good like word, but pulse checking is good.
well, and I think if it's something brand new, a brand new concept, being able to get that baseline where are my students at? How am I going to need to remediate or challenge? This would be a really good application to use. Again, it's that kind of standalone application that you're not having students watch video, do Kahoot, watch video, do worksheet, watch video. You have it all together, which
Yeah.
makes online learning.
Yeah, and I think that's great, especially like if you do any kind of previewing in your class, like you have a new unit coming up and you have the students watch a video, you get that immediate data back, right? Like I know they're going to struggle with this concept, so I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time here. But they really seem to already get this, and so maybe I don't need to spend as much time here. So you get, it's all about getting that data and being able to plan with it.
Wakelet. Okay. This is, I know that I've pushed Wakelet in our team for a while now, and you're kind of like, Erica, really?
She does love Wakelet.
I do love my Wakelet. Wakelet is the same as Pocket. I know some folks use Google Keep to kind of mimic Wakelet too. I like Wakelet because the mobile app is very similar to the browser app, and it makes curation really easy. And full disclosure, I discovered Wakelet actually at an ISTE conference, and what was being demoed for Wakelet was a high school class that did Shark Week on Wakelet. And so everyone in the class had created their own Wakelets for Shark Week. The cool thing about Wakelet is because you're curating, it's not just you're curating text content, you can curate videos, you can curate audio. It's shareable. You can mark it public or private. You can personalize the design of the space. So I've showed a couple of pictures here on my assessment bucket that I have. I've seen some folks use Wakelet also as a portfolio. So students are pulling in portfolio artifacts to their Wakelet. This is how my collection looks. As you can see, big green plus to add collections, and then very much about just kind of click and fill in the blanks when you're creating your new collection. So for 4season alignment, I put communications and critical thinking. I think we could also probably put collaboration. I think for communication, to me, Wakelet is very much your backup. It's your resources. It's where students can find further things to explore, but then also add in other things, because if you share that and you create a collaborative space, folks can add to your collections too. I chose critical thinking because Wakelet really makes you analyze how you're grouping things together, why you're grouping things together, and how you're naming it. For ISTE, I did collaborator, facilitator, and analyst. Again, that analyst piece is getting students to be both critical and creative thinkers. Creative in that they're designing the space, but critical in what they're choosing to put into the space.
That's really interesting. And one of the things that I like about these curation tools, and Wakelet is such a great one, is just I know that I am on a lot of different like email lists and things, and I get a lot of newsletters, and I see things that like I want to dig into, but maybe I'm in the middle of something, or I just don't have the time right this moment. And if I just let it sit in my inbox, chances are I'm not going to get back to it, or I'm going to end up deleting it. But when you have a curation tool like this, you can put it in one of your buckets or your folders, and you can come back to it. And I think that's really important, especially when you might see something that you're not teaching right now, but you're going to in a month. And, you know, you want to have a place to store those. And I just think these tools are great for that.
Or even you're not teaching this class currently, but you've been asked to co-teach it next year. So maybe you and your co-teachers start building a Wakelet where you have those resources.
Yeah. And, you know, we all know that right now teachers are wearing a lot of hats, and maybe teaching things that are outside of their normal content area. And so, you know, again, this is a good place just to start collecting those resources. It's kind of akin to Pinterest, but like
Yes.
more, uh, I think it's easier to use personally.
Yep. And something that we've not talked about, but we should just drop right here, especially, you know, since you talked about teachers wearing a lot of hats right now. Every single tool that we've demoed so far and that we will finish demoing, they have free professional development. So you can become a Wakelet certified educator, but you can also dive into the Wakelet community, into the Canva community. So they're, you know, even if you haven't used these tools and you really want to try them, but you're not sure of the learning curve, there's some really great professional development attached to these applications.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Okay, so back to me. CoSpaces EDU. So I'm going to be honest. This is not a tool that I've used a lot myself, but I think it's one that has a lot of potential that I'm very interested in. Here at UMGC, we've been really interested in AI, AR, VR, augmented reality, virtual reality, and how, you know, how those spaces can be used for education and how we can use them to teach, you know, concepts. And so, you know, we've been meeting with our IT department who is also exploring this. And we've just been really interested. And so as I was doing some research, I came across CoSpaces EDU, which is this really cool platform that I think provides an entry point into building these virtual reality or augmented reality applications. So if we skip to the next slide, so you can see you can do either virtual reality, which is where you kind of put on the headset and you can, you know, you're totally immersed in a new world or a new space. And there's a lot of different kind of platforms, whether you use kind of the cardboards or, you know, something like an Oculus. And then there's also augmented reality. So the best way that I can think to explain augmented reality is if you remember or maybe still play Pokemon Go, where the little creatures, you would use your phone and the little creatures would kind of show up in front of you through, you know, through looking at your phone. So this tool allows students to kind of create those applications. You can create them as well, but students can do it. And so they can design things like virtual exhibitions, like, you know, a virtual dinosaur museum, or they can build 360 tours. So I always think that's great, you know, for kind of places that maybe you couldn't explore in person, but you could build, you know, an immersive tour of a historical monument or place, or you could create a tour of the setting of a book or something like that. So there's a lot of possibilities there. It's also a platform where you can teach coding. So students can, you know, program their own games and things like that, or create stories. You can do simulations. So I think that picture right there is a simulation of a catapult of some sort. But you can actually, you know, build simulations. Maybe you don't have certain tools in your classroom, but, you know, technology is so great that like you can create them virtually and do effectively the same kinds of things. So like just really cool application. And I encourage you just to, you know, create a free account and try it out, and see what you can do with it. Okay, so you can see I got a little excited about this and I've decided that it fit all the 4 C's. So I picked everything, because I think, by creating these virtual and immersive environments, you can communicate, you can communicate information and ideas, stories, depending on what you create. Obviously, there's a lot of creativity involved in design, designing these tools or applications. I think there's critical thinking involved in like, how do you make all of these pieces work and put them together to tell a story or to create an application that solves a problem or something like that. And it can be a collaborative tool, so you can share projects with each other and work on them together. So I think it hits all of the C's. Then the ISTE standards, learner, I think, I think most of us are new to AR, VR. So I think, we're all still kind of learning what role it's going to play in education. Again, when, I talked about the collaborator piece, it's definitely a design tool. So you can, you can design all kinds of things. And, I think it's just another way to facilitate learning. I think we're always looking for new and interesting ways to introduce content to students. So that's my take on co-spaces.
I wonder too, Brandy, if we could weave in digital citizenship, right? Depending on what we're
Yeah.
doing with the space, how we're creating the space, it might be a really powerful digital citizenship lesson too.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. Actually, I just had a conversation with our friend David in IT, who's creating a virtual reality program for students to design VR experiences. And we were talking about the whole digital citizenship piece and how much like social media, there can be kind of cyberbullying and trolling and things like that in some of these virtual worlds. So I do think they provide an opportunity for us to, continue that conversation about what it looks like to be a responsible contributor to the online world.
Well, in creating safer spaces, right? There's no safest space, but creating those safer spaces and modeling that behavior for students.
Yeah, great point.
So another video, and before all of you say not another Prezi, no, this is actually different from the traditional car sick Prezi presentations that I think we're all really familiar with. What I like about Prezi video is you can do the video alone, the screen share, the PowerPoint, and the video. You can use some design templates. You can pull in the PowerPoint, but then you can go to just a blank screen. So I created this video with a PowerPoint. And what I liked about this is I could have my head talking about the PowerPoint, but then I could take my head off and the PowerPoint, or take the PowerPoint off and bring my head up. I was also thinking with this tool, I have a student who's creating a language lesson for a capstone project. And instead of using Zoom to record a video or Screencast-O-Matic, she's using Prezi so she can show how her mouth moves with the pronunciation on the PowerPoint. So it's doing that. I can hear it, I can see it, but I'm also looking at what the characters are. It's a Japanese lesson. So, why choose Prezi video over another one? This is, if you're creating that language lesson, it's a really cool way to be able to show students how to pronounce, how their mouth should look. And maybe in lower grades, those word walls, right? Having the word wall and then being able to show how that mouth movement looks with the word wall. So creativity, critical thinking. I would say that using the biggest part of using Prezi video is being a critical thinker of how you want to present your ideas. What's going to be the most impact for what the tool allows you to do. And then I chose learner, leader, designer, definitely learner focused, because I think you can, like the language lesson, it's really focused to learners, but also that leader, let me model some behavior. And again, designer, of course, because you're designing an experience.
You know what I like about Prezi Video? Makes me feel like a newscaster.
Yes, yes.
Like, you know how they always have information behind them? Yeah.
Yeah,
And if you use a tool like Zoom, like we're using Zoom right now to record this, Prezi works within Zoom. So you could, you could record your presentation through Prezi Video, but in Zoom.
Yeah, and I noticed that VidGrid, which is Canvas's video recorder, is also supported by Prezi. So even if you're not in a Zoom environment, Google Meet also supported by Prezi. So there are some different tools that you can use with Prezi to really enhance that presentation. And it's an MP4, which we all love an MP4.
Okay, bulb. Oh, bulb. So this is another one that I just learned about recently that I decided to include here because Erica and I are always talking about digital portfolios. Like we require students in our programs to create a portfolio because we want them to be able to showcase their work. And I know that digital portfolios, we also do a lot of those in K-12. But what we always struggle with is like, where do we host them, and what do we recommend to students? And so I found out about this tool, Bulb, and it's basically a digital portfolio tool. So what can you do with digital portfolios? You can create, collect work, share it with other people, and showcase your work. And the cool thing about Bulb is it actually, you can either create a portfolio for yourself as a teacher, like if you want to showcase your work, or maybe you're thinking about moving into a principal type role, or a technology specialist, or you're looking for another role in education. You can create a portfolio using Bulb. And then you can also have students create portfolios to showcase their work. So I think I have a few examples. So I pulled this off their website. This was a template for an elementary portfolio. So you can see they broke it down by subject area. And then the students can have a page for each of those subjects and add, pieces of their work to the portfolio. So you can start as low as elementary. I think the next one might be high school. Yeah, so here's an example of a high school template. And obviously you don't have to set it up like this, but this one happens to be by class period. So students can add, examples of their work based on, what classes they're in. You could name them by period, you could name them by class. They also created pages on here for community involvement, leadership, and life readiness skills. So you can really kind of create a page for anything that you want students to showcase. What do we have on the next slide? Okay, so I didn't pull down one of the educator examples, but if you go to the Bulb website, you can see all of the different templates. And what I obviously the first thing I like about this tool is there's a free version. So that's always nice, right? But I also like that they have these ready-made templates that students can just kind of use and pull in their work. And of course, there are, as with every tech tool that's out there, there are paid versions where you get, more functionality, more features. But from the research that I've done so far, I think it's a pretty robust tool. Four C's alignment. You can see I got really excited about the four C's again. So I picked all of them. I think when you're looking at portfolios, obviously you're communicating with a wider audience about, things you've learned or done. You can be creative in the ways that you demonstrate your work. I think there's an opportunity for creativity there. There's a critical thinking component, because I think when we talk about portfolios, it's really about choosing the pieces of work that best represent our skills, and that showcase the things that we're proud of. And there's collaboration, right? Most of us don't do a portfolio in isolation. We're talking to other people about it. We're getting feedback. I know that, that's one of the things that Erica works really heavily with our students on, is, selecting those portfolio pieces at the end of a program, to really showcase what students have learned and what they've done throughout the course of their grad program. And I think it's the same for our K-12 students. So ISTE standards, I think learner, and I know the ISTE standard addresses kind of our learning as educators, but I put that in there because it's a new tool and I was learning about it. Citizen, again, I think when we talk about putting any kind of work out online, we have to talk about what's responsible use, making sure that we're crediting sources and using copyright free images and things like that. So it's an opportunity to discuss those digital citizenship skills. I think we've already talked about the collaboration piece. The design, you're designing kind of you're helping students design this portfolio that they're going to use to showcase their learning, and you're also facilitating learning with them. I think going through and having to think about how you can demonstrate mastery of a concept or skill, I think that's a critical thinking piece. And so I think portfolios really facilitate learning in that way.
I think as a mom who used to keep everything from every single class, wouldn't this be a great tool to be able to take those snapshots of, what was that first thing you did in kindergarten? What was that last thing you did in kindergarten? But creating that tool. I was also thinking for teachers who are supporting like humanities, music, art kind of thing. How cool would it be to have your young musicians or young artists start to create a portfolio where they could start networking and collaborating?
I love those. I hadn't really thought about it, the parenting piece, but how cool if you created a portfolio maybe for each grade level and you had a couple of pieces of work and you could show that progression. Like, what a really cool piece of work that would be by the end.
Well, I think, as adults, especially when we career change and all of a sudden we need to showcase our work in this new area. And we're like, where is everything? That was like 4 Google Drives ago and 2 OneDrives ago. But if you have it in one place, yeah, where was it at? Do I have a floppy reader? But having it in that one place, I think is important, but it also allows us to be reflective and recursive almost, right? That we can go back and even look at our own work. And I could almost see this as being, where do you keep your leadership journal, or where do you keep your teaching journal? Or if you're embarking on, you were just assigned the 3rd grade, how are you going to keep all of those ideas in one place and then be able to come back to them and say, okay, this totally didn't work, but here's an artifact for this other thing that really worked that I want to keep.
Yeah. Great point.
So our honorable mentions, Headspace, I picked this one just because I think we're becoming more cognizant of mental health and mindfulness in education settings. Headspace has a ton of free resources and a ton of age specific resources. So you're not going to be throwing your kindergartners on there with your college students. And Sway, I 100% transparency again, Sway confounds me. It's similar to Canva and Spark. I've read reviews that call it PowerPoint on steroids. I'm still learning it, quite honestly, and I'm not sure that I would choose Sway over Canva or Spark. I've seen some really promising examples of Sway used as a newsletter, an interactive, moving newsletter. So definitely one that I want to keep an eye on.
And we have Google Arts and Culture on here. If you haven't checked that out, it's a really neat site where you can visit or see these really high definition images of artwork or kind of cultural spaces. And in some cases, there I think are more immersive things like the Google Street Cam and things like that. But it's just, especially when budgets are tight and COVID restrictions and things like that maybe keep us from going out and about on field trips. Google Arts and Culture is a great tool that doesn't necessarily replace going to a location, but it certainly can be an alternative. And then Gather, that's another tool that I just learned about recently, but it just seemed really interesting to me. So it almost looks like an 8-bit video game. If any of you remember the Nintendo and Super Mario, it kind of looks like that. But you have a little avatar that kind of, walks around in this 2-dimensional world. And when you run into somebody else, you can actually open up like a video chat. And so I've seen it used as like office hours, where, a teacher will set up a little space in Gather, and then students can go there and open up a video chat. And when we think about gamification, it's just one of those tools that kind of makes the traditional video chat a little more interesting. So I just think it's kind of neat.
Something that I like about a lot of what we presented today, Brandy, is we start getting students out of this one-dimensional text-based world, and we get them to start creating, curating multimodal objects to showcase their learning, which increases citizenship, increases their own creativity, their own analytical skills. So I think it's a win-win.
I agree. So we hope that you've enjoyed this presentation and have learned some tools that maybe you didn't know about before. We're glad you were able to listen in and that we were able to connect with you, even if we're not necessarily in person. You can always reach out to us, look us up online, or our email addresses are actually first name, last name at umgc.edu. Thank you, Erica, for putting them up here on the screen. So we're always happy to answer questions. We love to connect with other educators and talk about ed tech. So if there's a tool that interests you and you want to talk more about it, or you have an idea, or you just, you're just really excited about ed tech and want somebody to geek out with, let us know.
Thanks so much, everyone.